Hello, ladies and gents. Hagbard Celine here with another episode of Sinking the Pacific Ocean Liner. I am not going to change it in spite of his name change. I don't care that he's a whiny child. Now, in this episode, I did decide to just kind of roll it live and allow this lovely older man here just confess how deeply and badly damaged he is when it comes to the opposite sex. Now, I did have to look around a bit before finally settling on this one. I downloaded a couple other videos, but once I got into the meat of this one, I decided to switch back, just do this one live, and let's roll.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Oh my gosh, sorry. I was practicing doing a debut for the new Mr. Rogers replacement show. Hi, everybody. Do you want to be my neighbor?
No. No, I don't.
It's me, Pacific, where we talk about controversial things. Oh, yeah.
No, you talk about deeply stupid things, not controversial things.
Yes. Nobody wants to be my neighbor.
That's because we're all sane. No sane person would want to have fuck all to do with you, sir.
Hi, neighbor. Are you a feminist? Hi, neighbor. Are you one of those man-hating women?
No, unfortunately before us, we actually have the opposite example. This is indeed a woman-hating man. If he cannot verbally or physiologically control a woman, he considers her unruly. It's not exactly healthy thought patterns.
You're not a very nice neighbor.
No, you're not,
So,
Pacific.
I was thinking about this one. This was a subject that a viewer of mine asked me to discuss, and it was a female viewer.
Well, this will be enlightening.
Good subject matter, by the way, viewer. Very good subject. You guys will notice I have a photo, or a avatar profile pic, if you will, of an Asian woman.
Yeah, which is kind of creepy because it just further exemplifies how obsessed you are with the Asian culture and Asian women in particular, because you think they're more submissive than white women.
Pretty, dressed, somewhat interesting, with a dagger in one hand and a sword with the other, with the U-shaped protection thing so that nobody can grab her handhold handle.
I'm sure you're gonna make a point here.
And she's got a couple of slashes here and there and a little bit of blood. And somebody say, Pacific, you're so against women that are like males. I am. That doesn't change. But the subject matter today is the warrior a woman? Or is she just a woman of war? Meaning combative to her boyfriend, her husband.
Oh, so just if she argues with whoever it is she's dating, that's the problem. Now, I personally like feisty women with a backbone, which is why I think feminism is fucked up, because it makes women into children. You see, but you actually would prefer that, so I don't understand why you're against feminism.
Husband and the male populace in general. There is a difference. You see, even Pacific wants a woman who's a warrior.
No, you don't. I've watched enough of your videos to know that for a fact.
But I don't want a woman of war. I don't want a woman who's going to fight me, who's going to take that sword and dagger and constantly jab, jab, jab. How many men in American culture, Canadian culture, Aussie culture,
Japanese culture, but you're not gonna address the herbivore movement in Japan because it breaks your fetish with Asian women.
British culture, specifically zeroing in on white women that love to nag, pick at, make demands of, put expectations on their men.
So we're just going to ignore the classic Italian puppetry thing where it was the nagging wife and the submissive husband. This trope goes back forever because women get to choose the breeding population. This is true with most mammals and specifically true with our species, sir.
Wow, they don't have to change. I've experienced that a lot. Being married to 3 wives.
Well, having been married too, because clearly you can't keep a relationship going, so.
All of them would put demands on me.
I mean, this is the equivalent of the woman that says she's had 5 husbands and all of them were assholes. Like, it might be you. It just might be you.
But they themselves would not change. They would not become gentle. They would not become meek. They would not change the tone. Yet they would tell me, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Pacific has had a long past experience of women that lie.
And men, from the video I just saw and rejected because it took too long for you to get to your point. And men, don't forget them. They were your sweet, sweet lovers too when those sad women rejected you.
Women that don't tell the truth. Women that just, their recollection of the facts is somewhere up there with sci-fi.
No, while I'm not discounting this, I would say that anybody that argues with you is going to be labeled in this manner. It's kind of what you do, man.
Truth, in this case, is stranger than fiction. And as I've said before, when the average American male tries to confront the average, mainstream, feminized American woman, and you think that because you're marrying a Christian woman that they're not feminized, you better look a little bit closer.
It used to be that these religious women were just completely whipped and you could rule the household, but now you gotta go to places like Islam to find women like that, but you're not gonna do that.
Let me give you an example. The teaching that has permeated today's evangelical cultural Christianity, with emphasis on cultural Christianity, women today say, well, yes, wives are supposed to be submissive if the husband loves her wife. That's not what it says.
Well, no, you're going by the letter of your archaic book. I mean, if you choose to do that, the Bible tells you to do all sorts of ridiculous, outlandish, and frankly socially irresponsible things, but you're going to pick and choose where it serves you, as people have done for the last 500-600 years.
That's not what it says at all. It says, see that she respect her husband, that even if they do not obey the word, that they may be won over by your chaste, meek, gentle behavior. Would anybody in the room raise their hand that most American women today are anything but gentle and meek?
Well, some of them are, but the women you don't seem to go for them. But if you did, you'd find that there are some very gentle and quote unquote meek women. But for you to expect this to be their main characteristic is creepy, man. It's disturbing. You have control issues.
What I see is a whole lot of arrogance, a whole lot of loudmouth, and a whole lot of braggadocio going on. And that's the facts.
Well, don't date women that self-ascribe as feminists, otherwise they're perfectly happy being feminine. There's a little irony there, I'll give you that, but feminist women tend to not be feminine, whereas feminine women tend to not be feminist.
Women that don't have respect for God, who is also the creator of us males, in the way that they talk to us, in the accusations they make against us, especially when they're lying.
Oh, so it's because they don't believe in God anymore, right? It's not because human beings basically want to gain things. That's not the root of it. It's because they stopped believing in your Sky Daddy.
But as I've said about women, they can tell lies so many times that they finally themselves end up believing it. And that's
all people can do this. I've seen men do this.
That's what's been told to us. You tell a lie long enough, people start to believe it.
Technically, that's Goebbels' idea of the big lie. You just say something over and over and over again, and then the population in general will think it's true. It's a Nazi technique called the big lie.
I've told you about American women that make their clinical diagnosis of us males. He has anger management. Have you ever stepped back and watched that woman when she gets upset at something? Yelling, screaming, rage, cussing, name-calling.
Well, that's unacceptable behavior too, and she also has anger problems. Do you see how that works? It can fit both genders. You don't actually have to... You see, I actually fight for egalitarianism when I fight against feminism. You actually want women to return to their submissive roles. Now, see, that's a problem for me.
Go up and tell her, boy, you have anger management. And she'll get even more angry. How come they can dish it out, but they can't take it? Because that's a woman of war. That's a woman who's always fighting. She has no peace with God. Now,
why is it that you can dish it out, but you can't take it, in spite of the fact that you supposedly are at peace with God? But when someone criticizes you, you go all crazy. I know. I watched you do it.
Let me differentiate between peace with God in connection with our standing as a Christian. We can have peace with God as a Christian, meaning that we're not awaiting his wrath and judgment because we are in Christ's blood.
Well, you're not. You don't follow most of the rules in the Bible, just the ones that make you feel better.
But I know many Christians who don't have peace in the daily fleshing out of their lives. They're at war. And they're not at war with a world that is godless. They're not at war with a devil who is constantly hounding our souls and harassing and tempting and putting discouraging, doubtful thoughts in our mind.
No, psychiatrists call those unwanted thoughts or intrusive thoughts. You're just a schizophrenic, and those other thoughts that you're saying are the devil are just the thought that cock might taste good. I mean, that's okay. You'll deal with that someday, I'm sure.
Causing us to question the goodness, integrity, fairness, and lovingness of our God. No, these are women who are combative, women who play the victim, the women who blame the man for everything. You didn't do this, you haven't done this, and they love to grandstand about all that they've done.
Yes, there are large portions of society that are going against that without then saying that women are subhuman. It's not hard to do. As a matter of fact, all it is that they were taught by society that they are more than human. You see, that's what we're trying to get out of them, because we require them to be responsible for their behavior. You just want them to submit to your will. That's not okay.
None of it being true, of course, but going around in the hen house with their other female cohorts who are also divorced, who are also on medications and various dysfunctional behaviors, they all gang together against the common average American male to say, you're no good, you're no good, you're no good, baby, you're no good.
Creepy musical monologue, but the implication that everyone who has anything to do with women's rights is on psychiatric medication or mentally ill is, well, it's not the method that I would choose. I would refute their logic, I would refute their reasons, but I certainly wouldn't just ad hominem them, although that seems to be your major technique. My attacks aren't ad hominem. I'm making fun of you after I refute your points, you see.
That is not a warrior. That's a woman of war. What we call a strife causer.
What we call a social justice warrior. You see, we already have a word for it. Stop trying to rephrase things to make yourself fucking feel important. We already did it. We're working it out. We don't need your help. As a matter of fact, we'd prefer you stay the fuck out of the fight, because you make us all look bad.
I have had an experience lately where somebody I've known for years wants to continually put me in the condemnation seat. The Bible...
Well, yeah, of course, because you're worth condemning. And if anyone has known you for long enough, then they're going to condemn you eventually.
Says there is now, therefore, no condemnation for those who are in Christ, and yet the adversary, the devil, has made sure that somebody who claims to be a Christian is always there in my life telling me that I didn't do this, that I didn't do this, that I didn't do this, even though now none of that even applies, and it didn't even apply then. But
I wish you would flesh this out, and I hope you do later. I haven't watched most of this, but Jesus, I really hope you flesh this out.
Again, these are women who want to go to war. They want to fight. But they're not fighting an enemy. In fact, I would say something very bold to American women listening that are always bitching at your men. You might find when you stand before God someday that you were actually fighting against a servant of God who was trying to live pleasing to God, and you will be held accountable.
Now he just sounds straight up like a Muslim imam. He sounds like, women, you must know your place is under your man, and that to disagree with that man is to disagree with an image of God. This is why the women's right movement is how it is because of asshats like you that are legit saying God will judge you for having agency. It's not okay, man. I mean, women should be able to do what they would like to do, but not at the expense of society as a whole. You don't seem to draw that line. You seem to demand that we return to a literal form of desert people living, and I'm not willing to concede that, you see. This is why I'm combating people like you as well.
Trust me. God has a lot to say in His Word about those who cause strife. Strife can be caused by ex-wives after a divorce. Strife can be caused by a breakup of a guy who just decided this girl is not for me. He tries to end it peacefully. She text bombs his phone.
Okay, I mean, that's not really strife. You can just ignore that. You don't have to engage. And again, I hate to use this parallel again, but A lot of the Islamic people I've argued with argue that the existence of Jews and Christians causes them strife, which is why they're allowed to kill you, because their text says similar things about those that cause strife. Where do you think they got it?
Goes around work and tells everybody he, this, that, and the other. Most Christian women forget when they divorce their husband that when you go to all the women in the church to say what you say about him, you are now guilty of gossip. But that seems to be okay because he's my ex and he's a dirtbag.
Well, I'm sure they have some points when they call you a dirtbag. You don't seem like the most stable and enjoyable individual to be in a relationship with. I would warn other people about it. I have a whole channel where I've dedicated a Friday evening to warning people that you're a nutball, so I kind of get it.
He's a Hoover. He sucks. I've done it. How many of us have had a bad relationship and we do tell somebody?
I would argue most people do this. It's not gossip. It's how you get these things out in the open. It's how you get them off their chest. It's how you don't live a repressed life. But you wouldn't know anything about living with a repression, would you, sir?
But when it comes to Christian principle, if I understand Scripture correctly, it
Which you don't.
is not right. No matter what has happened to you, you have no business going to people that know this person or that don't know this person and start saying, oh, my ex was verbally abusive and my ex did this and my ex did that.
No, that's only unfair if that bearing of witness is indeed false. You see, if you actually were a verbally abusive asshat, which wouldn't surprise me, then they have every right to bear that witness, you see.
Number one, the big fault with that is that that man is not there to defend himself and say his side of the story.
Now you're describing parts of Sharia law. Go on.
And this is where I lay the blame at the feet of most American women, especially in the church, that they're real quick to take the female side, which is another hallmark of the feminist movement.
And of our gynocentric society as a whole, because it is within our biological urges to protect women. Because they are women. That's what our society's been founded on, man. Like, don't overthink it. It's not a movement. They're taking advantage of a naturally occurring thing.
We always defend women without question, unswervingly, without doubt. We hold our lanterns and our banners and our swords high that we will stand against every man who is divorced from his woman.
Well, that's not really the position. It's we stand against men that abuse women because we think it's reprehensible, you see.
Because they're scum.
Well, you are scummy, but...
Do these women actually think that God is going to honor that? Of course they do. They're a woman.
No, most of these women that are feminists simply say that God is a patriarchal control system, and, I mean, frankly, at this point, I've got to agree with them. It is, which is why I'm not religious in any way, shape, or form, but you actually do want that level of patriarchal control, which hurts me to say out loud and unironically.
They've been spurned, they're angry. Instead of taking a good look inside why their husband divorced them, they hurl abuse.
Well, that is absolutely nothing like what you are doing in exact reverse here. It's nothing at all like that. You're not burned, you're not scorned, you don't hurt, and that's not why you've been flinging abuse at women. This isn't the situation at all. Move along.
Over and over again. I have men on my channel right here that can testify to leaving an ex, and the drama still continues. You can get a divorce, but you're never divorced from the accusations. You're never divorced from the strife. You're never divorced from the harassment that goes on and on and on.
This occurs both ways. Again, just blaming women for the issues that your friend had is bizarre.
Especially if you have children involved.
Well, of course. Of course, if you have children involved. I mean, that's a given. If you have children with someone, you should expect that from that point on, you will be dealing with their bullshit. You should be very careful about the people you have children with for this reason, because you are thus responsible for those children. Although I'm sure you don't know a whole lot about being responsible for your children either, from what I've seen.
Is that the will of God, for women to carry themselves in such manner?
Couldn't give a fuck about what the will of God is.
Does that show evidence of Christian maturity and Christian growth?
No one gives a fuck about Christian maturity or Christian growth. I'm thinking about humanity here, which maybe you should start doing too.
And Christian humility? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What does Paul say about the past? Just this week I was confronted with this situation. It's like, My gosh, you're bringing this up again? Your recollection of that isn't even accurate, but you're bringing up something that happened years ago?
Well, yeah, people carry resentments, especially when they're about nutballs like you. I mean, you're probably a resentment stockpile, to be fair.
Those are women of war. What is evidenced by that kind of behavior, and you men know what I'm talking about. But let's be fair to women. We know that there are men out there that harass their ex-wives, call them, follow them, leave hate mail in their mailbox.
But somehow that's different, I assume?
But more and more and more in American culture today, we're seeing more evidence of women doing this.
Oh, so the problem is the ship. You're the problem. You're the guy that makes us all look bad. I condemn them both. You're just mad that it's women doing it now. Dude, that's fucked up.
Men just say, man, you know, what? Even if I had an affair, even if I screwed up, why doesn't she just leave me alone? That begs the question. If the man was so bad, why do you keep coming after him, harassing him when he's walked out of your life?
Hurt feelings last a long time. You just said men do the same thing. Jesus Christ, keep a thought in your fucking head for more than 10 seconds. Pacific.
Because that's proof there's something wrong more with the woman and less with the man. If he was such a bad guy and he's walked out of your life, shouldn't you be falling on your knees saying, oh God, thank you for delivering me from this scoundrel?
The same could be said for the men you just described.
But instead, they harass and go on the offensive and attack. Is that what God wants in a Christian woman?
Is that what God wants in a Christian man?
Virtuous woman as it's laid out in Proverbs 31? Absolutely not. What I find with these women, an inability to hold up the mirror of truth, their own face, and look at the stuff that they have brought to the table that caused, one, the husband to leave them, and then aftermath from there.
The ultimate irony here being that you're a man with 3 divorces that refuses to see it was probably you. You don't see any irony to that because you're clinically insane, but this is true. It is you, dude. It's 100% you.
Pacific likes that painting of that Asian woman. It's a hot painting. It's a sexy painting. It's a painting that evokes so much in me because if you look at her eyes, you don't...
No, I'm not 100%, but I'm fairly certain he's talking about his avatar, which I believe is actually part of the cover art or fan art or something of the old video game Jade Helm, but... Or no, I'm sorry, Jade Empire, but, you know, whatever.
You don't see this hard jadedness. You still see that sweetness in her eyes. But you've aroused the tiger in her, and she's ready.
So you're saying that there's no chance that you arouse the tiger in your ex-wives? Or other women? It's not, they're never right. It's just them being mean to you because you're so perfect and Christianly.
Pacific wants a woman like that. I want a woman that when I'm attacked, I want a woman that when I'm out there and I've got my back pinned against the wall, not to be my defender. I need to be the man and I need to be out there with my own sword drawn.
Then why'd you run to your alpha female when we had our little confrontation? You always do come off as a guy that needs a mommy, so you should probably just jump on board if a woman will be mommy to you.
But I want a woman when the battle gets fierce that she comes out from the cave behind me. You leave him alone. That's my man. That's what I want.
Clinical.
Why is it men are obligated to protect their women, but women don't protect their men?
Well, let me tell you, it's an old system by which men traditionally are stronger than women. Thus, they must defend them in the case of something stronger attacking them. See, it's pretty basic, but if you're deluded enough to think that when the going got tough that women don't jump in, you've never been in a bad situation with a woman that otherwise you never thought could do something like that. Because they're humans, and trust me, when the going gets rough, they will jump on the fucking ball, dude. Almost every one of them, I've very rarely seen a woman that would just sit there when the going gets tough. I've had my girlfriends jump in on situations that I was like, God damn, baby. Like, you didn't have to get involved in that, but guess what? They will, because they actually care about you. And if they don't, afterwards they feel really, really bad that they locked up. Because they're human beings, man. You're not giving them anything here.
Because we live in a culture where men are trashed, day in and day out, vilified, demonized, and insulted at all levels. Women's studies in American colleges and universities should be shut down.
That's the only sensible thing you've said the entire conversation here, but afterwards I'm sure you're going to go back to vehement women hate and asking them to submit to your will. That's the difference. I think women's studies should be shut down because it teaches ridiculous, unscientific concepts. You think it should be shut down because it actually does make women feel strong. Like that strong woman you were just thinking of. Do you think that would exist in societies that told women they were weak, like gender studies does? No, they wouldn't. But you're insisting it gets shut down and them be told that they're weak and to be under their man. Nowhere in the Bible does it say anything about fighting. As a matter of fact, there's a passage in the Bible that says if a woman jumps into a fight and accidentally grabs her man's penis, she's in for it. She's in trouble. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Look it up.
It is completely misandric. It is completely discriminatory. It is harassment to the American male. And our government doesn't do a thing. And until men stand up and grab that curriculum and show it to the government officials and say, look at this crap. And maybe somebody ought to have enough balls to take that to the Supreme Court and say, we men are being discriminated against, talked about in ways that is causing persecution, harassment, and bullying.
Again, many people are doing this. We actually just want you to stay the fuck out of it because you're creepy when you go about it. You see the difference? See, I'm against this. I fight against these movements. I am a quote-unquote anti-feminist, as I'm called, in spite of the fact that I'm all for women's rights. I'm just not for treating women as though they were superior spiritual beings and, retarded otherwise. It's one of the weirdest movements I've seen in a long time. But we are doing that, and we are getting around to it, but you sitting in a closet and saying you hate women isn't really helping things.
To us. When are we men going to collectively pull out our swords out of our scabbards instead of leaving them on the wall saying, isn't that a pretty cool sword? I clean my gun all the time, but I don't use it.
There's only one way you should use your gun, but I'm not going to go there.
Don't get me wrong by what I'm saying. Men need to do things the right way. But part of the problem with American culture is we men sat in our armchairs watching Sunday football or whatever other crazed fad thing that we're chasing, and you hear this the steady march of the Women's Liberation Army that's now in your face. In your face in traffic, in your face in store where a woman parks her car right dead center in the aisle and you can't go around to the left and you can't go around to the right, and you say, excuse me, instead of saying, oh, I'm sorry, she gives you a filthy look.
So because someone treated you shitty that was a woman, it's because of the women's rights movement? I mean, this is, again, you're literally saying she should have supplicated herself, pulled the cart to the side, and been like, I am so sorry, sir, and let you by. No, we did give the right to women to be shitty, just like men have a right to be shitty. Get used to it, man. That is something you're going to have to deal with. I'm sorry if it hurts your delicate, sensitive feelings, but it's a fact.
There's a woman who's trying to cause war. Or a woman who turns around and sees you coming. I love this one. Sees you coming and doesn't move. And you say, excuse me, and they give you a filthy look, and they barely move their cart by. I will tell you that Pacific has hit some of those carts. If you want to be like that, I will not hit the person. But if they want to move it over 1 inch and can't bother to move it 4 inches, which is what I need, I'll just gently push, and if it bumps there, then they look at me with this look, and you hear them go, yeah, so.
I bet that really made you feel powerful and manly, too. I mean, really. You're validating yourself by playing bumper carts. You fucking beta pussy.
All you want. Move out of the flippin' way. Ding dong. Women are at war.
Again, you're speaking in generalized terms, which I've been guilty of before, but then immediately try and correct myself. It is not women. It is women that have taken gender studies and buy into feminism. It's not all women. Stop it. You're making it worse.
I've already said that most women are selfish. Well, let me tell you.
Most people are selfish.
A lot of Christian women I know are selfish. Blame shifting, jumping and grabbing the blame that is due them and throwing it back on the man who's left them long ago. Playing the victim. What does the Apostle Paul say? But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind, I press on towards the goal. And American women always come back to this. But you, but you, but you.
I really feel like he has some real anger issues towards his ex-wife that come through in this video.
We're going to turn this into some sort of a rap chant. I mean, can you imagine the music? Don't
do it.
But you, don't, you know. Come on, man.
No, come on, man. Don't sing on your channel.
Why is it that so many American women, including in cultural Christian churches in America, are fighting wars that God never intended them to fight, causing strife, attacking God's own servants? Get over the fact your man divorced you because you were not a good wife like you want everybody to believe.
Well, maybe he also wasn't a good husband. I'm not even going to negate the fact that she may have been a bad wife, but it is also possible for him to have simultaneously been a bad husband. You do not even give that credence. Stop just saying fuck women. It's not helping the movement, man.
Quit playing the victim. Quit blaming. Look at what you're doing currently. Look at what you did before. If you can't look at what you did before, start reading in the scriptures about forgiving as Christ forgave.
Says a guy with absolutely more fucking holdover rage than anyone I've ever seen in my life. For someone who has grudges about anyone that's ever wronged him in his life. Dude, you're such a massive hypocrite.
Loving your enemies, for crying out loud. If I'm an enemy, quit treating me as if though I'm a godless, leprous, diseased person outside the camp. Just because a man leaves a Christian woman does not mean that God has turned his back on him and has said, oh, you're a piece of trash.
So condemn the women, but don't condemn them. You're a weird guy. Do not condemn the men just because he... What's wrong with you?
But if you listen to American women, they vilify, demonize, and say such things that if you listen to them talk, that all their goal is to harass, bully, and play the three-ring circus.
No, I understand you've had some rough experiences with women, but so have I, and even I know better. You need to get out more. You need to get away from your bus driving job. You need to get out of the closet here. And you need to go meet some normal women. Just normal, everyday, beperfumed, bepowdered women. Like, you know, they still are out there, man. They're not even rare. But for some reason, you don't notice them. I don't know what's wrong. I mean, I live in an area that's very progressive, if you will, and I see a lot of tattooed, slightly overweight, pierced women. But I also see quite a few of the standard model effeminate type that still don't buy into this whole there's a patriarchy thing, that still don't buy into this whole that they're being oppressed thing, because they're logical, normal human beings. You got to interact with people outside of the internet. That's the secret to maintaining like a normal level of cognitive ability, see?
God will judge every woman for that.
And every man.
Well, you don't know my ex-husband. Is he attacking you? Is he causing trouble in your life? How long can you play victim? Shows you how small your God is, doesn't it?
I know what's small on you.
You claim you have faith with God. You claim you have peace with God. And yet, you're always at war. Always accusing. You're
That doesn't sound like anyone I know, Pacific.
acting just like Satan, the accuser of the brethren, constantly. But to find a woman who's a warrior, I'm not talking the ones that claim to be warriors for God. You know, the ones that, I want a godly man.
Let's see how more muddled he can get through this, huh?
I have my mind focused on Christ. And they judge and nitpick. Those are women of war. They're not warriors. They're women that don't have a relationship with God. They have a religiosity that is superficial, whereby they've measured themselves thinking they're a little bit more perfect than us males, and it's their job to be scoldatory and motherly towards us and look at us like we're bad boys that threw eggs at cars.
Again, your mommy issues are showing, sir. If you allow women to treat you like that, that is because you have mommy issues. That's your problem, not theirs. You should scold them for that kind of behavior, and it will self-correct. Big pause. Big long pause. You got something broiling in there? You got something baking?
Thank you, viewers, for writing me saying, I need my Pacific fix. A mother of one woman said, do you have anything to do with Pacific not making videos? She laughed. Maybe I'm keeping him up too late.
You.
One of my viewers I've been talking to. Very wonderful woman.
I'm gonna check, because in his newest video he says he had a date, so I'm gonna see if perhaps that's the person that he's talking about. It would only make sense.
You know, it is not the will of God for women to be combative towards men under any context.
At least you're just gonna come out and say it. Submit to my will, ladies. I'm a man of God. God said submit. Thus come suck my D. Come on, man. You're fucking disgusting.
The Bible says, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with all men. The Bible also talks about those that cause strife, to warn a divisive man. Once, twice, and then have nothing to do with them. Paul has a lot to say about those that cause strife and tension in a church.
Yeah, again, it's where most of the strife, quote-unquote, quotes that we get from Islam come from. They're the Bible ones that are mega creepy. So go on.
Does that not apply to an ex situation? Of course it does.
You want it to, so of
The
course
problem
it
with
does.
most American women today is you better agree with their assessment of you. Put your tail between your legs, put your ears down, you're right, I'm a piece of trash, you're right, I didn't do this. But when you don't, their war is on and never ending. A sign that their relationship and walk with God is not mature. A sign that they are the ones that are troubled to the core.
Again, you're showing that you are as well troubled quite deeply.
Playing the victim is a sign that your God is very tiny,
Then why do you play the victim all the time, Pacific?
if he's even in your life at all. And as I get older, I'm starting to believe that those that call themselves Christians and the horrible things they do, I'm starting to wonder, do they just have a shred of religiosity, but they never really truly grappled with the grace of God?
Well, I'm starting to think that by your own definition, you don't fit into any of these categories and still don't seem to see it.
Contentious women. Better to live on the corner of a roof than with a contentious woman. Did you know that a lot of Christian women are contentious? Bitching and nagging at their husbands? Fussing?
Again, dude, you really seem to just come off as, and I hate to even say the word out loud, but you are an actual misogynist. You're the problem. Luckily, you're like 50, and you'll die off sometime in the next 30 years, and then maybe humanity has a chance unless feminism manages to push more men towards this direction in the same way that the intersectional portion is pushing certain elements of European and American culture towards some very negative attitudes on some other social issues.
At them, accusing them, putting them down. They just fail to look at what the Bible says about that. They just fail. Why is that?
Coming from a bus driver, I don't think you have any room to call anyone a failure in any regards, but go on.
Because their own relationship with God is very shallow. I know Christian women that don't make it a priority to go to church. They don't make it a priority to read their Bible ever. They read pop culture books by Joyce Myers and other women that are so far left of center of accurate theology, and they embrace that crap. They don't pray.
Again, it does come off as though you are attempting to just tell women how to live their lives, but I'm sure that's not your intent here. I'm sure you're trying to teach them how to be free, right?
They love to brag that, my God will defend me. Shoot, you're not even defending your God. You're not even walking in a way that's pleasing to him.
Oh, I agree, and all women should probably know that God is a deeply, deeply, deeply shitty person that you shouldn't listen to and wants to control your every behavior. I mean, I'm sure that Pacific doesn't feel that way, but that's why I am saying it.
Pacific has his problems,
Sure does.
and Pacific is very bold in his opinions and
Well, bold is one way to say it. Brash and stupid is another, but, you know.
beliefs about things. The false accusation I cannot endure, and the only thing I can go by with that is, God, you'll deal with that in your time.
That's good, because you clearly can't fucking handle it.
I hear American women throw out, you verbally abused me. If you pulled the camera and the video of all the altercations those men had with the women, you ought to see the way they're talking to their husbands. Yelling, screaming, acting worse than an adolescent girl.
Yeah, I've actually been in a relationship with a woman that did this, and the only correct response is to either be completely stoic, like an adult male, or to laugh. Those are the only options. Not until they move into a physical realm can you even respond to that kind of behavior. But since you are actually an adolescent, I can see how you might have some problems with that.
Who got her hairspray and her iPhone and her stuff taken away and has been grounded, slamming the door, banging things around, making it known to her parents of her great displeasure and the punishment they've exacted on her. Most American women in most cultural Christian churches do not have maturity.
Well, of course not. They're still in the church. If they were mature human beings, they would leave the church.
They're so caught up in our materialistic, media-driven culture that they are emulating that, not Christ. These are
Well, that's the church's fault. They should teach people better, right?
not warriors. These are women who cause wars. The devil is the author of wars and fightings and strife, and he loves that.
Well, actually, if you have read the Bible like you claim to, you'd understand that God is the author of many a war too. I mean, have you read the Old Testament? It's full of the Jews conquering people. Do you not know that? Do you not think those were God's wars, or was that the devil acting through God? Or man, I'd love to get a real sit-down conversation with you about theology, but I don't think you can actually have a rational discussion about theology.
You're not going to get through to women like that, men. Don't even try. And you women who work with these kind of women in the workplace are not going to get through to those kind of women. Don't even try.
So what's your plan?
Look at the age of the woman you're dealing with. Can a tiger change its stripes and become a zebra? Of course not.
That metaphor fell apart pretty quick there, buddy.
If the MO of a woman is to constantly accuse, blame, fail to take responsibility for herself, and she's in her 50s, chances are she's going to keep right on trucking down denial lane.
Sure, as long as it's profitable in some way, shape, or form. That's basic behaviorism. That's not a miracle that you understand that if she continues to profit from it, she'll continue to do it. That's the most simple mechanics of human behavior. Now, see, my goal is to try and make it so that it's no longer profitable to behave in that manner. You see?
At that point, we men need to say, how then do we deal with people like this? For us men, it says, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with all men. You'll never be able to stop the accusations. You'll never be able to stop the defunct, dysfunctional, screwed up thinking in her mind about the way she views you. She does not view you the way God views you.
Well, nobody does by even your own theology, but besides that, this doesn't make sense. You're just asking that women all view you as holy. It's really weird.
How does God view us? God views us through the lens of truth. God views us as heirs of Christ. He says that he has given us a spirit whereby we cry, Abba, Father, which denotes an intimate relationship with God. But if you listen to most Western women and their assessments of their ex-husbands, you would think that I or any of them were the Antichrist.
But instead, you think you're the Christ. Do you not see how wrong that is? Do you not see how fucked up your thinking is, man? Holy shit. Holy actual shit. Holy actually shit in my hand and sling it at you like a monkey because your thinking is so wrong. You are a fucked up individual. Good God.
I have seen God use me more in the lives of others than I've seen these exes and the way they've treated me and the comments that are still made about me. I don't see God using them at all to reach people with the gospel, to be an influence of anything good in anybody's life. And they hurl their insults like children hiding out behind a fort, and when a passerby goes by, they stick their head out, throw their snowball, and duck.
Well, I mean, that's one technique. I'm pretty persistent. I'm working on episode 3 here. But beyond that, you see, most people don't give their time to spreading the gospel because it's a waste of fucking time. There's no reason whatsoever to do it. I spend my time trying to spread the concepts of secular humanism, the concepts of equality, the concepts of libertarianism to some degrees, the concept of especially cultural libertarianism. But you know, if you're busy spreading that women should submit to men because God, then you go right ahead and see how far that message gets. You see, it doesn't have any reason behind it, just like feminism, which is why we're stomping on that. But you're stomping on dumb with dumber, and I like poking fun at it.
Those aren't warriors, those are chickens, those are cowards, bullying and causing dismay. So much so that the traveler says, I am not walking down the sidewalk. I'm getting tired of being pelted with snowballs.
What exactly does this metaphor mean?
So the wise pedestrian says, I'm going to go around that place. Sometimes the wise pedestrian goes back, circles the hill, comes up behind him and says, hey, what are you doing?
Well, what do you do if the snowball thrower follows you with a basket full of snowballs and once a week chucks one at the back of your head? Because that's what's happening right now, Pacific.
And the kids run scared. The image that I put on my channel, people think, boy, that's contradictory.
No, it's just creepy and shows your obsession with Asian women.
It's not. You ever heard the saying of a mother bear robbed of her cubs? Get between a mother bear and her cubs and watch out. Even Pacific, when I walk in public, here's 2 kids dinking around on the right. Here's mom talking to another woman on the left. I walk around that whole thing. Don't go between them, because even walking between them, guess what happens? Oh, mommy. Oh, jeez, I almost tripped over a half pint.
So you're scared of women and children. Good to know.
Women need to be warriors for their men. And women, it is easy.
No, you just fucked up, you see. Women are already warriors for their children. That's really what they need to be. Men need to be warriors for their families. Women need to be warriors for their families. Now, if the family includes a supportive man, more on them. If not, then the woman thus must be supportive alone. Now, if a man is alone, the same is true for him. Why is it that you struggle with that? Why is it that you seem to have some difficulty with the concept that perhaps that in your metaphor, men might indeed, because they are larger and stronger, be the first tier? And you're just so obsessed with this concept that women should fight for you, that they should be in the background, ready to jump in when you start to lose, that you just can't conceptualize that occasionally in today's society women have to do that without you, and that you, perhaps, were not a good warrior.
For 50% of all marriages that end in divorce, 50% of all marriages end in divorce, and out of those marriages that end in divorce, I find it very interesting, as I've stated this before, but we need a refresher, that always, every time I hear the same drumbeat, it's the men that are to blame. really. So some more.
Where do you hear that drum beat? I've never heard that. I've heard many varying stories as to why divorce happens, but somehow you're seeing. I'd like to see the statistic that says divorce is men's fault. Please show me that statistic before you make another video.
Along the line, women were goddesses, deity, a sinless perfection, don't need the shed blood of Jesus, and the men are always at fault. Rationally, just looking at humans on a daily basis, I can't even buy into that.
Of course not. So then why do you think it exists? Where did you see this? Where the fuck did you find this? Because it doesn't make sense. I personally have seen women divorced for cheating on their husbands or for embezzling from them. It's a thing. I don't know where you're getting this concept, but it's always the man's fault. Except from your own internalized hate.
Are men the inferior species, as feminism teaches? No way. Are men the head species? No. Does God give offices to certain people that he does not give to others? Absolutely.
Okay, so it's not the biology, it's God. Okay, that's better.
He says the male is supposed to be the head of the house. The problem with American women is they don't like that at all.
Because it makes no sense, because it inherently makes it so that men supposedly know best, which factually is not always the case and could never be the case. Do you not understand that? Do you think that God gave men decision-making skills he didn't give women? Because that's creepy, Pacific. You're getting creepier every day, man.
They reveal their unsubmissiveness by their voracious attacks. Vitriolic, rageful, vengeful attacks.
When we all know they should just be submitting to you, right?
And they hide it behind their emotional, euphoric bullcrap, crying, turning on the tears at just the right time, living in a miserable life, never attaining to personal happiness, never attaining to any personal peace in their daily walk, and yet have convinced themselves that God is on their side, not mine or any of you other ex-males out there.
So you're saying all women feel this way, not just a very, very weird, creepy subsect of Christian feminists? It's all women. All women think that you're just talking shit.
Can that even be supported by Scripture?
No, but you don't care about supporting half of the shit you say by Scripture.
No. The last time I checked, it says all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God.
However, men's sins are lesser, thus they get to rule a household?
And as Eric, in his video, going to the Philippines to meet his Philippine lover for the first time,
that they weren't lovers.
Shows an individual. And his video is great, by the way. I still love the cat farting in a Canadian cabin. That's classic. I love that. And as this man comes up to a woman, talks to her, somebody comes along with a bicycle pump, and the woman rises up on this pedestal, and he's like, so he moves to the next woman. It's become so epidemic in our society that even women who, I'm going to say it, are obese, don't take care of themselves, not very attractive, because they have bad habits and gluttony and a host of other problems, that even they themselves, a guy like me, even if I want to lower my standard and try to go out with them, here comes the bicycle pump. That's why you see fat women posting in Craigslist, I don't want to date a fat guy. Really? Have you looked at your pictures, lady?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's silly too, and it's mostly due to the feminist wave, but for you to say that that's a symptom of being a woman is kind of sad. I mean, it's just not. It's because there's a weird movement in the last 5 years that says that we shouldn't body shame fat people, which is fundamentally wrong. As a fluctuating weighted individual, it was the fat shaming in my youth that made me self-conscious enough to go, maybe don't be a complete fat ass.
Arms are big around than my butt and thighs. What we have more than anything else in American culture is not a woman who exemplifies the virtuous woman at all. I have never met a virtuous woman.
I have. I've met several. I've met many. Get out of your fucking bubble more often. Maybe you'll meet some virtuous women. Maybe don't rely on going to a Christian church. You see, most of the virtuous women I've met actually weren't religious in any way, shape, or form. They were cognizant people. They were intellectuals. You see, intellectuals function on that level. Not religious people. Religious people tend to be base, if you will.
In Christian culture in America, I have never met one. I have met virtuous women in other countries, but not here. Women don't like it when I say that. And I've heard women backlash to that one. Oh, well, if you read that, that's impossible. Of course, but you put that same crap on men, and you beat on your vilification drum. Boom, boom, boom. Oh.
Again, feminists do that, not all fucking women. You're doing exactly what you're saying they're doing in reverse, and then saying that you're the good guy for doing it. Stop being a fucking twat.
Over and over, when he doesn't measure up to your, not God's, your idea of what he should look like. I told my viewers that in a marriage I was in, that the woman berated me for being too loud, talking too much, being too energetic. I said, what you're criticizing is not flaws, but character traits.
No, it's your mania, and frankly, living with you would be a fucking nightmare. Her mistake was marrying you. She must have been desperate. Did she need a green card? I've talked to some people that know some stuff about you, and I'd actually be interested in hearing from them in this comment section. Why? Why was that first woman or one of his wives that had done that? Why was that? Was it the green card marriage? Was it that they needed his money? What was it? Because it couldn't have been him. What she was criticizing was that he is an obnoxious motherfucker, and he is an indeed obnoxious motherfucker.
That's who I am. Why then did you marry me?
They needed something from you, clearly.
I'm going to tell you men something very clearly. You must have compatibility with the woman that you go after.
Duh? Do you think this is a self-help moment? That should have been obvious when you went after women.
If you're soft-spoken, you'd better probably not choose a man who's more New Yorker in the way he moves around, and expresses himself, and talks loud and fast, and likes to talk a lot. If that drives you nuts, I don't care how fine you think he is, leave off of it. Because that will get to you.
There we go. Relationship advice from a nutball.
The idea that opposites attract...
No, it's 100% true, dude. Don't denote that. Every girl I've ever been with has been an opposite, and that was why we were attracted to each other. If you date someone too much like you, well, God, you guys would have a crazy moment. I'd love to see a woman you dated that was just like you. It would be a nightmare.
Mostly fallacious. What I want is a woman who has some of the things that I don't have, but I also have things she doesn't have.
And that's not opposites attract? How does your brain work? You're literally asking for complementary without saying that it's opposing. I mean, obviously, it's not directly opposing. I'm not going to date someone that thinks everything opposite of me, but I'm going to date someone that has the characteristics that I don't have because of the complementary nature in them makes me a better person, and vice versa. That's what's meant by the saying opposites attract, you idiot.
Not where we can nitpick and nag and hold it over somebody, but where we can encourage each other.
Oh, sure, just make that face and make me feel bad for making fun of you. That's fair.
Lately, I've been in some intensive training. And if I were to be like a child and go, oh, I'm too scared to go down that hill in first gear and not touch brake, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. Sometimes you just need to have enough unction inside of you to just say, okay, my instructors tell me to do this. This sounds totally illogical, but I'm doing it. And
it's not illogical. First gear has a top-out moment that maximizes your speed downhill, and not hitting the brake in a large vehicle makes it so that you minimize skid. It's It's pretty basic driving, but since you're the kind of guy that probably doesn't understand the basics of physics nor the application of physics onto driving, the 100% wheel theory to turn ratio to braking to acceleration. But no, you're not big on that. You're not a race driver or anything. So
You're careening down a mountain in a bus that's in first gear, and you're feeling it take a rate of speed at an 18% grade at a hairpin turn, and he says, just ride it through, steer it through, and everything in you, your heart's pounding, and you want to push that brake, and you want to push that retarder, and you're going, and you're thinking, that's too fast for this 40-foot vehicle.
your cowardice is amazing, sir.
But when you do it, and you do it exactly as he told you to do it, you go, whoa, I didn't know I could do that with this vehicle.
I bet you could learn a lot of things about yourself by actually going outside of your comfort zone, but since that was considered a fucking adventure for you, I can't imagine how dull your life is.
That's right. You're learning under extreme circumstances that this is what you can do. But you're never going to come down that hill that fast, especially when there's ice, because if you do, then you're going to have a problem. You hit the front brakes, front wheels lock up, you have no steering on a hairpin turn. There's no guardrails, by the way. So you got a choice.
That's called understeer, but go on.
Take the mountain to stop the bus or go over the cliff.
You choose mountain, by the way. You always choose mountain.
I think the answer's obvious. You got children on board, you better take the mountain.
Obviously.
Nobody wants to be thrust in a situation like that.
Well, then don't lock your brakes up going downhill on a mountain pass while there's ice. I don't think they'd send you there when there was ice.
But I do have peace about one thing.
That if you wreck that bus, you're going to heaven?
People who cause war, people who cause strife, God's going to shut them down.
Shut it down! Everyone shut it down!
And he may not do it in this lifetime. David himself said when men were throwing stones at him, which is something you did not do, he's the king, and his men drew their swords and said, you want us to take them out? David said, no, because maybe God has allowed this. And that's what Pacific has to say. Does somebody attacking you mean that God is disciplining you and upset with you and that that person is in the right? Not always.
That's not even what the quote just said. It said maybe God is allowing this. That means it is permissible for some reason. Maybe you have something to learn from this, or... Oh, never mind. You're not a theological scholar.
Sometimes God allows somebody who is immature in Christ to be an instrument of suffering in your life so that you will grow and get deeper with God. Let's face it, none of us like suffering. What do you do when you have a woman of war in your life, whether it's an ex or somebody you're married to? If you're married to her and you're in a Christian home, you need to say, you and I need to go to the pastor because your behavior is atrocious.
We need to go to the pastor. Jesus, man, that's how you solve marital... No wonder you can't keep a marriage together.
If you're divorced, not much you can do there. An out-of-control woman is an out-of-control woman. A woman who is not mature in her Christian faith is not going to have the mind of Christ in how she deals with you.
The same could be said for men, but since you're a woman hater, I'm sure that you just continue to fucking hammer away at this, in spite of the fact that when I do videos against feminism, I'm answering a feminist and not just ranting against feminism and women in general into the fucking void, man. It's unhealthy.
And you're not going to be able to tell her that. The reason you left her to begin with is you had no influence on her for however many years you were involved.
Well, because you're a beta who has no influence over women. Like, if you weren't that guy, if you weren't you, your ex-wives wouldn't have left you, man. Like, that might have something to do with it.
Give me a woman who's a warrior for Pacific. Me being the man, me being the guy who stands out there on the front line. But if push comes to shove. And we've heard this over and over.
Oh, we're back to this. We're back to, okay, look, I want to be the man, but in case anything goes wrong, I need you waiting to help me. I mean, I need women to back me up. Like, it's weird that you feel that way about a people that, I mean, you need them to submit to your will to enter that position. It's odd that you don't give them the agency to make their own decisions in life, but you demand that they then are your warriors.
Men who've done everything right and their own women don't defend them. Well, you're the man, you need to handle that. Well, yeah, but any of you guys worked with ropes? There's several different kinds of ropes. There's string, which is one strand. It's easily broken. And you get into ropes, and you have 3 or 4 strands woven and twisted together. A lot harder to break that.
Uh-huh. I get the metaphor. Please move on.
When you have a wife that is with you, it doesn't mean she agrees with everything you do and say, but when she is with you, and she's got one hand on her scabbard ready to pull that sword out when somebody's coming against you in a way they shouldn't be coming against you, that other person's going to have a run for his or her money. But in America, in so many homes, we have so much division, so much self-centeredness going on, so much self-preservation going on.
Which is exactly what you're doing by being self-obsessed, but, you know, don't work that out or anything.
Marriages suffer because the two are not compatible to begin with, and the woman is not a warrior for you at all. She's just at war. There is nothing else that needs to be said on this. American women will...
And yet you spent upwards of 30 minutes talking about one subject.
Do the hamster Olympics defending why they're angry, why they hurl abuse, why they attack and condemn over and
Well, why do you? I mean, really, why do you? You're doing the exact same thing.
over. I submit to them only one thing. Show me in the Bible where it shows you have that kind of permission slip to act and talk and behave in that way.
Well, luckily in the Bible it apparently does say that you can do that. Do you not see how sick that is? Do you not see how fucked up that is, man? Get some self-awareness.
Towards another man who has a relationship with God and who in God's eyes is forgiven and made clean. Show me the money. Don't give...
Well, at least we know he feels he's completely justified no matter what he does because of those reasons. That's why religion is scary.
Give me that crap about your twisted human fleshly assessment. Start looking through the eyes of Christ and ask yourself a question, that I am made in the image of my Creator and you're cursing me and harassing me and troubling me. Show me.
Jesus, this is so scary. It really is the bottom of his psyche. It is literally women owe me because Bible. It is literally God says man superior, women you owe me. That's so scary. What are you fucking rebooting, man? Hurry up.
Women, are you a warrior or do you just cause war?
Men, are you warriors or do you just cause war? It's an asinine question. It doesn't mean anything.
Most workplaces I've heard women say the following things: I would rather work for a bunch of males than a bunch of women. They are so catty, they cause so much trouble, they make me so uncomfortable. Women...
This is factually true. I mean, this is actually a study that was done that proves that women would prefer to work for men, but I'm sure you're going to turn this into something really fucked up.
Can't even work with other women. I know women that do a good job at their job, and other women just ride their butt and cause trouble. Women...
I know the same situations with men. You're as bad as the worst feminist man.
Women that are immature, childish, rude, where even human resources doesn't start looking at them and saying, hey, what is your problem? Do you need to be disciplined and suspended from work for 3 days or fired? If I had a corporation, I would be very reluctant to hire too many women.
Well, that wouldn't last for very long, but you go right ahead.
Just based on what I've seen. Not saying they can't be good workers.
Just based on your own sexism.
But I wouldn't want a bunch of women in one office together. Heck no.
Listen, as a guy that worked as the only man in an office with 6 people, they were all pleasant to work with. There was very little intra-relational strife. It doesn't have to be that way. It may have been that way, and it may tend that direction, but it doesn't have to be that way. You're defining it as it must be, that if women are majority in office, office will be inefficient. It's not the case.
Are you a warrior or do you just cause war? Happy Sunday, everybody. Thank you for being patient. Videos up and coming by the grace of God, and we will be bringing more subjects to pollute the internet, to titillate you, and to make you think a little deeper. This is Pacific, signing off. Bye-bye.
Well, while I find it highly
It's a beautiful
unlikely...
day in the neighborhood.
Well, I find it highly unlikely that he will be in any way, shape, or form doing most of the above things. We will continue to, well, break down his ridiculous arguments as a once-a-week program brought to you every Friday night by yours truly, Hagbard Celine. I thank you guys for getting through this with me, and Pacific is a joke. I mean, he is the worst type of human being, and I will continue to do this until somehow he makes me stop. So, until that day, ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 3 of the sinking of the Pacific Ocean liner. Goodbye.